What's up, alumni? Welcome to After 4, your podcast for navigating life after graduation. I'm your host and guide, John Steele. We're back to a more typical episode today. I hope you enjoyed last week's April Fool's experience with Andy Mineo. If you missed out, give it a watch on YouTube, and more importantly, head over to our other podcast, InterVarsity World Changers, to catch my actual conversation with Andy. Links are in the show notes. For today, though, we get to hear from another Focus Ministry alumna. Her name is Julia, and she was a member of Athletes InterVarsity at UW River Falls. Not only are we going to hear the story of her humble but brave approach to planting new ministry on the basketball team that she joined as a junior, we're also going to hear about what the transition to life after graduation has been like from the perspective of an athlete. Julia is going to share some of her challenges and how God has been meeting her and growing her to engage with his calling in her life. This was such a fun conversation, and I'm really excited to share it with you. Here's Julia, and this one's for you, alumni. Julia, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So excited to have you. Julia, I'm really excited to get to hear a little bit about your experience with InterVarsity, your experience with transition, your experience with continuing to learn and grow and discern how it is that God has called you and what that's looking like in your life these days. But before we jump into some of those things, Julia, would you just give an introduction, help me and help our audience get to know you?
Yeah, so my name's Julia, like you said. I just graduated from UW River Falls in Wisconsin.
Okay.
And I had a major in exercise and sports science. And now I just started grad school this summer in getting my master's in occupational therapy at UW La Crosse.
Okay, very nice. That's great. And my understanding is you're also a part of Athletes InterVarsity while you were at UW River Falls. Tell us just a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, so I actually transferred to River Falls going into my junior year. And so I was kind of needing a little faith revival at that point. And I had a really good friend from my hometown that also went to River Falls and played volleyball there. And she was part of InterVarsity, and she was talking to me about how they were looking for a connection on the basketball team, which is the team that I was on.
Okay.
And so she was like, I think that you would love this. I think this would be really good for you. Like, you should join it. And so I trusted her, and I was kind of looking to get engaged as I had just transferred to a new school. So I said yes, and I kind of didn't really know what I was getting into at all, but it quickly became like super impactful on my life, and I became super invested in it, and it was just a super great experience. And then at the time that I got there, we didn't have anybody on the basketball team that was involved. Okay. And by the time I left, and even talking to the girls this year since I've been gone, I mean, we're up 10, 15 girls. So
wow,
it's been an awesome experience. Yeah.
That's really amazing. So you're telling me that you went to a school that you had never been at this school before, looking for community, looking for your own sort of faith revival experience. And in the midst of experiencing all of these new things, you got invited into starting something new, and then got to be a part of seeing like revival happening on the women's basketball team.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty amazing. I imagine that wasn't exactly the experience that you were anticipating, but maybe better than you had hoped for.
Definitely better than I'd hoped. But yeah, I remember being just like super hesitant, and like honestly, if I didn't trust my friend, and we had known each other since 5th grade, like I probably would have been a lot more hesitant. But just knowing that she thought it'd be good for me, I was like, okay, I can do this. But yeah, it definitely became a little bit intimidating just at first, because I'm new, but now I'm trying to start something new on a team that I'm just like getting to know these girls on. So I'm like, I'm intimidated. Like, I'm just trying to make friends here. Like, I'm not trying to ruffle any feathers. And then, just slowly throughout the year, my leader, Jason, was just kind of like very patient with me, but kind of like encouraging me to like keep reaching out and seeing, because he's like, I know there's other people on your team that would be interested. They just maybe haven't been approached before. And so just kind of slowly, one by one, we'd get one person, and then that person would tell someone else. And it was definitely a slow burning, but like by the end of my first year there, I think we had 5 or 6 girls. And then by the next year, I think we kind of added maybe another 5 or so, and started going to church together as a team and just stuff like that. Wow. So, and then I actually became a student intern last year, my senior year.
Nice.
So then I kind of started being more involved with like all the sporting teams on campus. So started out super small, but ended up turning into something really awesome.
Wow. That's amazing. And it's interesting. You talk about just being faithful to the invitation, essentially, like Jason's encouraging, like just talk to some people. And then one person says yes. And then a few more people say yes, but that somebody was faithful to the invitation to you as well, to be like, hey, here's this group that I know about. You should come be a part of it. And you're like, I don't know, but okay, this is something I'm looking for. And what it looks like, just to say, it's my job to ask, and it's the work of the Spirit to move in people's lives, and we'll just see how they respond. And then for it to go from you to one or two teammates to 10 or 15 and engaging with other sports across the school as well. Like, wow, what a cool story. What a cool experience with Athletes InterVarsity on campus.
Yeah, 100%. And like, kind of like you said, just with it being Spirit led, like, I don't feel like I ever did anything super amazing to like make this happen, you know? Like, I just kind of like took it one step at a time, and like I was very hesitant, but like seeing what it turned into, like I know it wasn't something that I did, but at the same time it's super cool to be part of it.
That's so great. I love that story, Julia. That's awesome. And I'll bet there are a whole bunch of moments on campus and conversations with your teammates that we could really dig into and build a story around some of those moments. And that would be a lot of fun, but I'm gonna fast forward us a little bit. You talked about you came in as a part of your junior year, then your senior year you were a campus intern. Well, then where I'd like for us to start leaning into is actually that point of transition, moving out of River Falls and that experience and into this next stage of life that you're in now after graduation from your undergrad. On this podcast, we're all about the transition experience and helping our young alumni make that transition well. That it's going to be challenging no matter what. We can't take away the challenges, but maybe we can help provide some helpful resources to navigate those challenges better. And that's part of what I want to do in our conversation, is just to learn from you and what some of your transition experience has been like and the ways that God is teaching you through that process. And maybe you can help other young athlete alumni in particular, but alumni in general, help them navigate some of the spaces that you've been walking in helpful ways. So to get us started, Julia, I mean, tell us just a little bit about what it was like to transition from undergrad life into this next stage of life. And are there things about being an athlete in particular that made it a unique transition, or made it especially challenging or exciting? Like, what were some of the things that you were experiencing as you transitioned?
Yeah, I would say looking back, it was definitely challenging, just because so basketball goes kind of through like February, and then it ends. Spring's coming, everyone's super excited, and then you graduate. So it's just like the next like 2 months like fly by, and then you graduate and it's like super exciting, and you like, you know, everyone's having a great time like hanging out outside, and all of a sudden like you move and like you graduate and you're done. And then for me, I moved to a different city to start grad school, and I started right away, like June 3rd, I think. So you get like 2 weeks, and like your whole entire social circle, your whole entire like city landscape is completely changed, at least in my experience. So it was kind of challenging at first, just because it's so new, and like it's like 0 to 100 really quick. So I guess specifically what I would say, my one piece of advice is like right away. So it was a summer, but I'm starting school. So that was hard just to like jump right back into school. But also like it kind of like was this feeling of like a slowness, like a slow pace of life. And for as an athlete, like that's super hard for me, because I'm used to like practice every day, lift every day, like games on the weekends. Wow. Like if we're not practicing, we're hanging out with the team or having team dinner. Like, so to then go from that to trying to make new friends, you don't even have that friend circle yet, and you don't have that sport. I would say that was super hard for me to just like be like by myself, or finding things to fill my time with new people and in a new place. So that was definitely like challenging experience for me. But
are there things that you look back on for that transition time with your team and say, here's something that I did that worked really well for sort of ending well with my teammates? Or are there things that you look back on and say, here's something I wish I would have done differently so that I could have had a better, felt like I, tied a better ribbon on some of those relationships and that we were ready to move forward from there.
Yeah. One thing, which I think I kind of did well in some ways, but in other ways, I feel like I wish I would have done it more, is like, I was trying to work as much as I could, because typically when I'm not in season, I'm trying to pick up as many shifts as I can. And I actually worked overnight. So a lot of times I was sleeping during the day and then working at night. So I did end up missing out on like some team events and like just hanging out and stuff, which, you have to find that balance, because obviously I'm trying to pay for grad school too. But at the same time, like, you have those 2 months, at least in my case with basketball, like you have those 2 months where like you have these last 2 months before you're leaving and you don't have basketball. Like, maybe I wish I would have taken a little bit more time to just enjoy that and not worry so much about the money. Then again, at the same time, I know that not everyone has that luxury and depends what your situation is. But as much as you can, I would say just like really dive into spending those last few months with your teammates, because you definitely miss those times. But at the same time, I think that there were a few times where I did do that well, where I was like, nope, I'm not taking a shift this week because I know that there's this event and I want to hang out with everyone. So just finding that balance and trying to push yourself to make the most of every opportunity that you get. And then just like, I don't know. It was hard just because, like I said, you end and then you move and then like you're starting up. So it's definitely hard to like gradually transition. But as much as you can, like just trying to stay in contact and, through social media and, just phone calls, FaceTimes, keeping up with everyone. I try to do that as much as possible in the beginning, but it was also hard with just being busy with school. But as much as you can, I would say just try to keep those contacts and make it not feel like it's such like a hard cutoff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've gotten to have some conversations with people about what it looks like to transition well. And that's one of the things that we talk about is how do you make a plan, even to think ahead of time for moving into a season of transition and staying in contact with people and figuring like who are the right people. Because you just can't maintain all the same relationships that you had, even really deep, meaningful ones that you get to the point where you're like, I can handle like 3 or 4 really, really tight knit relationships. And that's about it in the midst of transition. And how do you discern who those people are? And I think that's a really good word of like, take advantage of the opportunities that you have while making space for balance, because you need to be able to also think ahead towards the what do you need to be able to transition well, just very practically. And one of those things is, well, you need to have the financial means to be able to transition well. So I think that's a good word of finding that balance of spending time with people and preparing for some very practical next stages. Julia, transitioning us a little bit here out of sort of relationship, but as you think about some of the experiences that you've had thus far in grad school, I know that maybe this feels a little different because you're not necessarily like in your field yet. You're not, practicing every day with the things that you're wanting to do, but you are in school. So I wonder, at this point in your life, how would you articulate what your calling is? What's the sense of calling that you feel on your life from the Lord? And how does what you're doing right now, whether that's grad school or something outside of grad school that's happening for you, how does what you're doing right now help you lean into that calling?
Yeah, I feel like this has kind of just been a theme throughout my whole life. Like, I just love helping people and serving people and like seeing a positive impact that you can make, because I think I have all the abilities to be able to do that. And I have like the resources and I've been very blessed. So why wouldn't I give back to other people? And so that is like a really big reason why I did choose my career in occupational therapy, just because, you can be helping multiple people every single day get back to a life with like freedom and independence that they may not have had before without you. And so I just love that about my career, my profession. And I just think like being an athlete, I've always just been very interested in like exercise and working out and being healthy. And I think that that's something that I can give in my profession as well. So I would definitely say my calling is just helping people, and like being able-bodied and physically able to help other people is kind of how I want to give back.
Yeah, which to me just rings really true for an athlete. I mean, because you have spent so much time in conditioning and trying to elevate what your body is capable of doing and to be able to succeed at a really high level. And so you have like a really special perspective on what it looks like. And when that doesn't work, when your body is not functioning the way that it should through an injury or sickness or something like that, and to be able to say, man, I know what it's like to be able to compete at a high level. And I would love for other people to be able to feel like they can operate at a higher level physically as well. So it totally makes sense to me that you would have like a special level of compassion for other people and wanting to see them be able to do that well. There's a couple of things that I'd be interested to know about, like what kind of influence they've had on your calling. One of those is that I know that you recently went on a missions trip. And so I'd love to hear just a little bit about that, what that experience was like and the influence that it's had. And then also just kind of circling back to Athletes InterVarsity and like, how has that helped shape the way that you see your calling? So let's start with the missions trip. What was that experience like for you? Where did you go? What were you doing? And what are the things that you're seeing that God's doing through that in who he's developing you to be?
Yeah. So I went for about 2.5 weeks in January this year to South Africa on a mission trip. And I don't know why, honestly, I have no idea why, but for some reason, I've just always had this like feeling that I want to go to Africa. Like I need to go to Africa. And I've done other mission trips like in country and stuff and different volunteering stuff, but I love traveling. I love international travel. And so I just really felt called to do this mission trip. And yeah, so then being done with sports, I was like, okay, like I have this free time, you know, what am I going to do with it? You know, I've never been able, I went on one like short study abroad trip in undergrad, but other than that, like I never was able to do like a semester abroad or anything like that just because of basketball. So I was like, okay, I'm going to find this trip. I'm going to do it because I have a month off in January for J term from school. So looked around, wanted to do a mission trip, wanted it to be a Christian mission trip, and then found this organization called Go Missions, which is who I went through. And they go to South Africa and they go, it's kind of near Kruger National Park. So it was super appealing to me because they had a balance of working in the community with like the preschool and like the neighborhood children, and then also going and doing like some anti-poaching efforts because there's big rhino poaching in that park.
Wow.
And so kind of balancing with that side of things and seeing nature and stuff. I just love being outside. I love traveling. I love seeing new things. So that was super appealing to have that balance for me.
Yeah. And as you spent time there, as you were engaging with other people, as you're, spending time in an area of God's creation that it sounds to me like you've never gotten to be a part of and see things that are just very different than the typical space that you occupy. I mean, are there things that you could identify, whether it was then or now that you're, a few months removed from that experience? Are there things that you can look at and say, these are some of the ways that I feel like God was moving in me during that time, and ways that he's like informing my steps forward from here?
100%. The first thing, which has kind of like been my like focus as I've gotten back, is just like the perspective that I've gotten. There was definitely a very wide range of like poverty versus like well-off people there. But there were definitely some areas where it was like basic resources were lacking. And so to have that perspective of like, okay, when I'm complaining here about homework, at least I have education. When I'm complaining here about who knows what, it's like giving me that perspective of like, whatever I have here, it's never as bad as it could be. And that giving me that perspective to just be grateful for everything, because even in those places where they're lacking these resources, they have no idea that they don't at least display that they are lacking. They are so joyful. They have this great sense of community. You can't even tell, like when we were hanging out with the neighborhood kids, there's like 30 kids. They are just like family. Like you can't tell who's brother and sister because they all act like brother and sister. They aren't sitting on their phones. They aren't complaining, they are just present in the moment and enjoying everything that they have. And they're just so grateful and joyful that we were there. So that was definitely the number one takeaway, is just like coming back here, like checking myself if I get into habits of like complaining or like just thinking like I have a problem. And then it's like, no, but you really don't. So that's definitely the number one thing I would say. Yeah, I had thought I had another thought, but I lost it. So
no, that's fine. It's interesting that you say that, and it makes me think, boy, stepping into the world of occupational therapy, that I would also imagine that in addition to helping people sort of return physically in some like that there's also an element of being able to tend to people's mental state as well. Like, how are they feeling? How are they processing the experience that they've had, and their therapy, and what kind of progress they're making. And that even there's probably moments in there where you can contextualize some of those experiences and say, not necessarily saying like, well, it could be a whole lot worse. I don't mean that, but saying like, you can take some of those things and say like, bro, there's a different perspective that we can have here in the way that we're thinking and feeling about things. How can I help encourage someone forward in having a positive outlook on their experience and their progress? And it makes me wonder if there's like sort of a supplement to the work that you'll be doing that experience could have, and that you could take with you into that space.
Yeah, definitely. One thing we've talked a lot about in school so far is just having that like progress focused mindset, or like ability focused mindset, rather than focusing on like what they can't do or like what the negatives are. And I think that kind of ties super nicely in with that mindset of like just really focusing and identifying the things that they are doing that are like progress based, or that are potential based, or that they are able to do, and really focusing on that, and like identifying those things to these people. Because when you're in the midst of some sort of traumatic event or an illness or something, it can definitely be hard to see that. And not like you said, not that their scenario, like it's not a competition who's off worse, but it's like, if we can focus on the positives, I think that just gives a lot more inspiration to people. And I think that it just makes the therapy sessions and the treatments just that much more effective and enjoyable as much as they can be.
Yes, absolutely. And, inviting people into an experience of pursuing joy, even as they are experiencing lack, that those two things are not mutually exclusive. You can have both of those at the same time. That even though this part of your life is like a struggle, this is really hard right now, that what are the things to be joyful about? What are the things to celebrate? And like you said, the progress and the growth, or even if they're having a difficult time progressing, and that's just not moving forward the way that they want it to, like, well, what are some of the other spaces in life that you can be joyful about and that we can celebrate together while this is a really hard time? I think it seems like there's some really great takeaways, and I'm sure even more that the Lord will continue processing with you and revealing to you. The other part that I'd love to lean into, though, is like your experience with Athletes InterVarsity. How would you say that has been impactful for shaping your calling and influencing the way that you see how God has made you, and the way that He's inviting you to partner with Him in His world-changing work?
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned before, but I would say first and foremost is just like giving me this like fresh start on faith. Because like I said, as I entered into Athletes InterVarsity, like I was still like participating in the faith, but it was not as intentional or as like grounded as I feel like it has been since university. And so I think just like developing that relational aspect of faith was something I was super lacking before, that I grew a lot in through university. And I think that definitely impacted like taking that step to go on this trip, or taking the step to, reach out to people and stuff like that. So I think that was a huge thing. I think also just like giving me a foundation and a basis for that, like who my identity is, regardless of what I'm doing. And we did a couple different studies and stuff, Bible studies, just about like how you're not defined by your performance, you're not defined by your sport, you're not defined by your success in school, and like you're a child of God, and that's like first and foremost. So I think that definitely helped with the transition, and with just like knowing who I am, and being able to move on from being a basketball player or being an undergrad student and stuff like that. So I think that was super helpful. And then just like, because I said yes to Athletes InterVarsity, it opened up all these doors for me beyond that. So taking that mindset and saying yes to any opportunity that comes up, like you never know what doors are going to be open, and God places things in your life for a reason and at the right time. And so, it might not be exactly what you expect, but if you have an opportunity and it's possible for you to make it happen, I feel like my mindset is just to never say no to something without at least looking through it and weighing the options first. Like, always just be willing to see what's next for you.
Yeah, that's really great. I especially love that second one that you're talking about, of the way that a sense of identity, and how does leaning into I'm a child of God first and foremost, and then other things sort of flow out of that or fall under that umbrella. And again, that feels like something that could be such a powerful perspective to take with you into your day-to-day work. Into you're in grad school now, where you're just operating at a different level of competition. It's no longer something that's on the basketball court. Now it's like the next level of educational competition and high stakes, and like, oh, okay, this is grad school. This is a big deal. I'm hanging out with the smartest people that I could be. And what does it look like to take that perspective with you into grad school and say, okay, here, I want to be really good at what I do. I want to work hard. I want to do my best and perform well. But I am a child of God first and foremost. And if something doesn't go well in my program, you know what? I can try to keep working on that. But at the same time, it doesn't change my standing before the Lord. And that's really good news. And that's news that you can take with you to your cohort, the people that you're hanging out with every day in classes and things. And then what does it look like to take that with you into the work that you'll do, into the churches that you'll be a part of, and the neighborhood that you'll live in, the people that you'll interact with? Of like, our identity is in Christ first and foremost, and how does that influence the way that we live around us? And again, feels like a very powerful thing to be taking with you into this stage of life.
Yeah, definitely. I think also just because you know that identity, and you don't feel like you have to be defined by, like I said, your grades in school or your success in your career, or like how you measure up against others, then you don't have to take that perspective when you're in a cohort, 26 people, and you're all competing for this degree. It makes you realize, like, no, we're not competing. Like, it doesn't matter if they do better than me in this or they do better than me in this, because we're all going towards the same degree. We're all going to be occupational therapists at the end. Like, let's work together, because our identity is not based on me being the best in this and me raising above others to do this. Like, we can all be mutually exclusive, like you said, in our success. Like, you can be successful, I can be successful, and us helping each other be successful is going to make us better occupational therapists for our patients. And so, kind of the same thing of like not dwelling on like, okay, I have all these problems. Like, no, it doesn't matter, because I'm a child of God, and these like trivial things don't matter. So it just gives you this like bigger perspective that small little things aren't as big as they seem, because there's just so much greater. And like, same thing with even traveling. Like, when you go to a different place and you realize how big the world is and how much more there is out there, it just shapes your perspective, and it just makes you realize that like some things are just like minor inconveniences. And same thing, like one grade is just one grade. Like, it doesn't define you, and it doesn't define your career. So I don't know. I think it's just giving me like a bigger perspective in all aspects of my life, of like, here's the big picture. Let's not get so focused on all this nitty gritty, like little stuff that really doesn't matter in the end.
Yeah. I think that's so great, and when I was in grad school, it is very easy to feel like you are competing for like the number one spot or whatever, but instead to say, well, yeah, what if we acted like a team here, not a cohort of people that are trying to get the best grade in our classes and who will hopefully be the best candidates for jobs down the road. Like, let's help each other be the best that we can, rather than doing it by myself. And saying that, like, we can work together on this. And that was one of the things, my experience with grad school was, our cohort was very much like working together. We helped prop one another up and encourage one another and help each other study and things like that. And that made it so that it felt like we had a team mentality. And that was an amazing experience. And that's something that you can take with you through all of these different places of what does it look like to operate as a team. And if I step into a space that people don't work that way, there are probably things that I need to learn from them before I just start implementing my way. For sure, I should do that. But then are there things that I bring to the table where I could encourage people into sort of a team mentality and how can we do these things together. And yeah, then you can help provide that perspective for one another of like, man, if something goes wrong, it's just one thing. One thing went wrong. There's a much bigger picture for us to keep in mind here, and you can encourage each other in those difficult spaces. Julia, as you think about your fellow alumni, your fellow Athletes InterVarsity Alumni, is there like a final word of advice or encouragement that you would give to other alumni like you who are experiencing this first year of life after graduation?
Yeah, I have a couple pieces. So first, I would say, which I already kind of mentioned, is just like when you're coming out of grad school or graduation from undergrad, like be open to anything. Like don't say no to anything, because this is your time in your life where you don't have like, unless you're going to grad school maybe, but like you don't have a set plan or a set of deadlines that you need to follow. Like this is your time. Like, so don't say no to anything. Always be open to a new experience, because this is the age when we can do it. So that'd be my first one. Second one is like, I mentioned how I kind of struggled with the slowness of life kind of right away out of graduation. And I would say just appreciate the slowness as much as you can, especially if you're someone like me that likes to stay busy and active constantly. Like I just really tried to dive into reading my Bible and doing some different devotionals and, listening to podcasts and like filling that time with impactful ways that I could as I'm still trying to build my community and figure out, what the next steps are for me. But just appreciate the slowness, because it definitely will pick up pace very soon. And then you might be wishing for that slowness back again. So appreciate that. And then I would just say, like, trust that God's going to put you where He wants you to be. Like, you never know what is going to come next in your life. So just always be open and looking for what He has planned for you. And then again, just say yes. You never know where it's going to lead you. And this is the time to try new things. This is the time to explore and discover and figure out who you are, what you want to do with your life. Like I'm still doing that, but saying yes to things like the mission trip, like these different experiences, has really just helped me start to figure out those pieces.
Yeah, that's such great advice, Julia. And I think that middle one of slowing down, of being prepared for the slowdown and leaning into it, I think that actually makes the combination of those other two work together way better. That of leaning into what are the invitations that God is giving you, and when God gives you an invitation, say yes to it. That when we slow down, it actually makes space to be able to watch and listen for those invitations, rather than just being like kind of rapid firing our lives and like, well, I got to get over here, I got to get over there, I got to distract myself, I got to keep myself occupied because I'm used to being on the run all the time. And saying like, I'm going to slow it down and I'm going to listen. And when the Lord provides me a really great opportunity, I'm going to say yes to Him, even if it's not the opportunity that I was anticipating. But I want to see where God's going to take me if I say yes to this. I think that's really fantastic advice, because these early days of life after graduation, they really are the time to like test and experiment and try out new things, and to figure out sort of this next stage of who is God inviting me to be in this space. And you're not really going to figure that out unless you actually test some things out. So That's phenomenal advice, Julia. I really love that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Julia, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. This has been super fun. I'm really grateful for the experiences that you've had, the ways that you've said yes to Jesus and taken some risks that you weren't anticipating. I'm still just like, I'm loving the story of you showing up to UW River Falls and like just these yeses that you made, that then God opened the doors to all of these crazy, unexpected things of like Him moving through your team and through other teams. And that's something that you carry with you through the next stage of life. The experiences you had there are informing the way that you're following Jesus now and being open to invitations from Him. Thank you so much for sharing those experiences with us. And I'm excited for you and for as you continue on in your program, and for the ways that God's going to continue moving in you and in the spaces where He invites you. So thanks for being faithful and for being a faithful athlete.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This was super great experience, and I hope that it can help other people in any way.
Alumni, I love Julia's invitation to lean into the slowness after graduation. And though my athlete days ended after high school, I feel confident that this is a particularly wise invitation for you alumni athletes who are listening in. I guarantee you that your schedule will fill up over time. But if you're willing to do the hard work of slowing down and safeguarding some space to pause regularly with Jesus, you will have a much better shot at hearing his guidance so that you can discern and follow his will. And it may not always feel like that's what's happening. It may not seem like some billboard saying, go this way or do this thing. But I do believe that slowing down and making space to listen will cultivate your ability to discern right from wrong and godly opportunities from worldly ones. Julia, thank you so much for having time to share your story today, and thank you for the ways that you've been faithfully saying yes to Jesus' invitation in your life. Keep it up. Alumni, come back next week for my conversation with Erica Young Wrights, the author of After College, Navigating Transitions, Relationships, and Faith. Erica is a leading expert on the transition to life after graduation, and she's going to share some of her most recent learning about Gen Z's experience with transition. Be sure to tune in. Until then, consider sharing this episode with someone who needs to hear it, and I will see you in the after, alumni. Thanks for listening to After 4. This podcast is brought to you by the InterVarsity Alumni Relations Team, hosted and produced by John Steele, production assistance by Mike Zentera, edited by Caleb Leppert, and our After 4 theme music was written and performed by John Steele.